everyone, my name is Larissa and today I'm going to talk about my CMT related symptoms and how they've evolved over the years. Okay, let's go. So, of course, it's pretty well known right now that CMT is a very heterogeneous disease. It is considered that the onset of symptoms occurs in the first 2 decades of life, between the age of 0 and 20. But this is not true, of course, for everybody with CMT. Sometimes the symptoms can get revealed. The onset of symptoms can happen in the later in life, even in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s. There are cases described like that. But my symptoms started when I was around 14 years old, and these symptoms I noticed during dancing. So I was an active dancer, and since the age of 7 I was going to a dancing school in Russia. I used to live in Russia at that time, and so I was going to a dancing school, and I was spending a lot of time there, maybe like 3 hours, 3 or 4 times a week. So nothing was bothering me at all up until the age of 10, when suddenly there was some pain in my heel. So my mom and I started going to different doctors, I think pediatrician, and the doctor was like, okay, doesn't seem like anything is wrong with you. So he recommended some procedure, and I was doing it, and then somehow the pain went away. I don't know, I don't think the procedure helped, but the pain went away. And then from the age of 10 to 14, I can't say that there was something bothering me. I was quite active, I was attending the dancing school. The only thing I was kind of noticing was that I wasn't good at PE class at all. So physical education class was my least favorite class, and I was really bad at it. I couldn't really run very fast, I couldn't jump high or far, I couldn't throw things far. And the one time that I tried skiing, maybe I was at maybe the age of 12, 13, maybe a bit older than that, I couldn't really ski. It was very uncomfortable for me to wear those ski boots that then get attached to the ski itself. And this movement in the feet that you need to do in order to ski was very uncomfortable for me. So at this age, around 14, 15, I started having this kind of symptoms. And like I said, it was very clear during dancing, because before that, from the age of 7, I was dancing very actively and I could really tiptoe very well. So the styles of dancing that we were doing were kind of different. There was classical dancing, which is kind of like ballet, all those kind of movements. And for ballet, as you know, it's important to have a high arch to really do like a toe raise thing, and I was really good at it. Like, my arch was very high, and my dance teacher was very happy with my high arch. But at the age of 14, 15, I just couldn't tiptoe anymore. I had my high arch still, but I couldn't tiptoe. I couldn't lift my heel off the floor very well, and this was weird. Also, what was weird is that it was uncomfortable for me to wear some shoes. So if there was any kind of heel in the shoe, it was difficult for me. And actually, if I think about it, maybe even at the age of 10, 11, 12, it was already kind of difficult to wear shoes with a heel. So at the age of 14, I had to drop out from the dancing school because I couldn't do several movements anymore, such as tiptoeing, which was very important for the type of dancing we were doing. And that's when the diagnostic odyssey started. So my mom and I, we started going to different doctors. We didn't even go to the neurologist at first because we didn't know if I needed a neurologist. So all kinds of different doctors. And then eventually we met a neurologist who recommended us to go to a bigger city. So I'm from a small city in Russia, and the neurologists there are not very versed, especially in rare diseases. So this doctor recommended us to go to Moscow and get proper diagnosis, etc. So these were the first symptoms. Like, it was uncomfortable for me to walk. That's what I was telling everybody, my relatives and the doctors. Then I couldn't tiptoe, I couldn't lift my heels off the floor very well. And the symptoms that I think are definitely related to CMT, but I didn't really mention them at that time, was that I couldn't run much or like very fast. I couldn't jump far or high, and I couldn't really ski or do other movements that required a lot of feet, kind of ankle movements a lot. So these were the first symptoms, and they've been developing ever since. So by the age of like 20, I couldn't wear almost any shoes other than sneakers. And I tried a lot of different shoes in my life. The doctors were recommending that I should wear the shoes that hold my ankle in place kind of really tight, but those kind of shoes didn't work for me. And then I discovered sneakers, particularly Nike Air Max 90. They became the most comfortable shoes for me. And then I also discovered Birkenstock, the sandals. I had a video about that. Watch it if you haven't done it yet. Slowly it became a bit more difficult to walk, but actually during the last decade or so, I don't really notice that much of a difference. So it had become difficult to walk, and I get pretty tired when I walk for a long time, when I do a long walking distance kind of walking. But because I now have much more comfortable shoes and I have custom made insoles that I put in the shoes, or if I use Birkenstock, which don't have any custom insoles but are just good by themselves for me, then I can walk more or less long, more or less far, and so I don't really feel like I've progressed a lot in my CMT in this regard. Another symptom that I had when I was a teenager, but I don't have that much anymore, is the spraining of the ankles, the twisting. So I used to have it a lot. When I was at school, in high school and in my undergrad, I would walk and I would twist my ankle all the time. And again, I think that was because I didn't have comfortable shoes. My gait was not corrected, therefore it was very easy for me to just twist my ankle, and then it will get swollen, it will get very painful, and a few times I even had to wear a cast because I would tear a ligament. And actually this also happened a few years ago, but if I compare how much I'm twisting the ankle right now to the time when I was a teenager, right now it's almost zero, maybe like 5% of what it was like when I was a teenager. And I do think it is because I do have a much more comfortable shoes, but also because I'm doing specific exercises for the feet. This is also very important. When I was a teenager, I wasn't even told that these exercises I needed, that they're important, that they will change anything. Some doctors would mention it, but they wouldn't really show much about like what I should really be doing. So, but now I do know which exercises I needed to strengthen the ankle, and so I'm doing them. And it's also important to strengthen other muscles, the bigger muscles, the proximal muscles of the leg, as well as the glutes, the core, and everything else. So these symptoms, I feel many people with CMT and many doctors are already aware of. The kind of weakness in the feet, the weird gait, the foot drop, that is usually a sign of CMT when you kind of drop your foot because you don't have good dorsiflexion, you don't have a good control of the foot. So these symptoms are pretty well known. The other symptom that usually is kind of adding at the later time in life with CMT is hand weakness. So this is something that I also noticed maybe around 5 years ago, that it became hard to lift things such as a pan, for example, a frying pan, a kettle. It's sometimes difficult to hold a like heavy glass, or to lift those coffee mugs which have a really tiny handle. So I really hate those cups because I can never lift them up. I need to use both hands to do that, and fine kind of motor movements as well. So it's difficult to tear things up, to open certain packages, sometimes peels or things like that. So this is also pretty well known, and Some types of CMT are actually more characterized by hand weakness rather than feet weakness. But in general, CMT is usually affecting the feet first and then the hands, so the distal muscles of the body. And it is manifested in the fine movement kind of disturbances. Tremor also, I have a video on tremor, you can watch that one. And difficulty lifting things and manipulating small things. But other than that, a few other symptoms emerged recently in my life. And of course, the first thing I do when I have an additional symptom is I look at the scientific literature. I look at the research, the studies that describe what kind of symptoms people with CMT have. So one of the symptoms that I started experiencing a few years ago is the high-pitched noise in my ears. So for no reason, it seemed like there would be high-pitched noise and it would just go woo like that and then it goes away. So I've noticed that this would appear when I am particularly stressed or sleepy or tired. So if I haven't slept enough, or if I'm really stressed, or if I've been working non-stop, then I do have this kind of high-pitched noise in my head that comes and goes. And the only thing that helps is just taking rest and sleep and relax. The other symptom that I started noticing kind of a few years back also is swallowing. So sometimes I feel like I can choke on something very easily, on water, on food. So this is really scary, because if you're suddenly choking, it feels like, oh my God, I'm gonna kind of choke and I can stop breathing and die, kind of. So this symptom is really disturbing. It doesn't happen that often at all. And if I'm just like paying attention to the food, to the drink, and I'm trying to do it slowly and in a controlled manner, then it's fine. It doesn't bother me that much. But problems with swallowing are very well described in people with CMT, and it might as well be the symptom of CMT. The other thing that I've noticed is the problems with the GI tract, the gastrointestinal tract, stomach issues. And again, I'm referring you to the video that I already made on this topic. And it seems like many people with CMT have GI issues. This can be the acidic reflux, the hiatal hernia also, which I will talk about a little more in my next video when I'm talking about diaphragm weakness. So actually the GI issues that people with CMT experience might be connected, might be related to the diaphragmatic weakness that people with CMT might have. And this is again because of the nerves that lead to the diaphragm and those that lead to smooth muscles lying in the internal organs as well. So I am now actually in the middle of finding out more about my GI tract issues, but I believe that it can be very well connected to CMT. And there is data showing that people with CMT oftentimes have GI tract related issues because of the degeneration of the nerves that lead to the smooth muscles. So these are the symptoms that I have been experiencing, and these are also the symptoms that are not talked about that much, even by doctors. So it's important to educate people with CMT as well as neurologists, specialists, not only neurologists but also gastroenterologists and all other kind of specialists, that actually this symptom might be related to my CMT. So look into the literature. You can talk to your doctors like that, right? I'm going to the gastroenterologist soon, and I've printed out the papers that I found, and I'm going to bring them and talk to the doctor about that. And show them that, okay, this is not just me thinking like that. This is actually the research showing that there is a connection. Understanding what is the underlying connection between the CMT and the symptom that you're experiencing is a very powerful thing, I think. So yeah, discuss it with your doctor, show them the papers, and I hope that's going to be helpful for everybody. And then, of course, there are symptoms like fatigue. This symptom is really debilitating and it really sucks. According to different estimations, maybe like 2/3 of people with CMT, but I believe it's more, experience fatigue on a daily basis. And this is also something that is very difficult to deal with, because during some days you're just lying flat in bed and you cannot do anything just because you're so fatigued. And this symptom is also very well described already in the scientific literature, that CMT causes fatigue like that. So fatigue, a general kind of state of weakness, and sleepiness, daytime sleepiness, and disturbances of sleep. This is another big topic which I want to cover in a separate video, but sleep disturbances are also quite well described already right now in people with CMT and other neurological diseases. And this can include difficulty with falling asleep, difficulty with staying asleep, daytime sleepiness, the lack of kind of restful feeling the next day. So people usually, when they sleep the next day, especially if they sleep enough and well throughout the night, they will feel refreshed. But people with CMT never truly feel refreshed in the morning. So I can kind of relate to that, because for me many things should go well to even fall asleep and to stay asleep. So I need to be very calm. Ideally, I need to do a meditation or like deep breathing, some kind of deep breathing before I sleep, to calm down my nervous system, and then I can fall asleep. Then it's also important to have someone with me. If my husband is with me, I'm much more likely to fall asleep faster and to stay asleep longer and just not being disturbed throughout the sleeping time. And then I do wake up throughout the night more than people without CMT. I actually have my Fitbit, which tracks my sleep, and it tells me all kinds of different data. And I'm going to show you this also in the next video about sleep and CMT. So sleep disturbances is just, now I want to mention that sleep disturbances are common in people with CMT. Sleep apnea is another thing that actually is also described to be like a high risk in people with CMT, and restless leg syndrome. This is also I'm going to cover in the next video. So I don't think I have sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome, but I do have some kind of sleep disturbances. And in order to function well, I do need to sleep enough and to sleep well enough. And again, in one of the next videos, I'm going to tell you about what kind of techniques I use, what kind of daily routine I have in order to sleep better, to fall asleep faster, and in general to kind of feel less fatigued with my CMT. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel and I will be covering more CMT related symptoms. Okay, see you next time. Bye bye.